What's up, Squirrel Squad? Sean here, and today we're back with another Smogon tier changes update video. Today we're looking at the new changes for July. It's been a minute since the last one. They do these about every 3 months or so. So we looked at the tier changes they did last time in April. So now we're gonna look at the new ones for this month. So if you guys enjoy, leaving a like and all that, other YouTube crap would be really appreciated. Because that lets me know you guys like these types of videos, and that kind of feedback is very much appreciated. And as always, we have these lovely little graphics here showing off all the new changes and whatnot, as well as the usage stats for OU, as well as all of the other tiers, courtesy of the Smogon Twitter account. So shout out to them. And yeah, let's just hop right into this. Starting off with the rises up from the lower tiers to the higher ones. Starting off with Weavile going up from UUBL to OU. And it's about time, if you ask me. Weavile get some respect. Look at the usage, it's actually number 14, which is pretty high considering it used to be BL. I believe the reason it's being used more now is because of the banded set. I believe banded triple axle can it's either a 2-shot or an OCO on Corviknight, I'm not sure. I haven't checked the calcs, but it does a lot. That's the point. It does big damage, alright? Because that's big Weavile. You gotta put some respect on it. It's about time. About time a solid mon like Weavile got some usage. I actually have a Weavile currently in a draft league that I'm doing, and it is putting in massive work. So no surprise to me that Weavile's coming up. It's just always been solid. It's one of the few good offensive ice types out there. It's fast as shit. It's got great attack, great move pool, dark stab as well. It's always nice to have, and it just fits good. Even without pursuit, I do really miss pursuit, and I do wish it still had it. But even without it, triple axle is just such a crazy move on this mod, and I just think it makes sense that people are using it, and it should be OU because mon's a threat. All right, don't sleep. That's big weave. All right, put some respect. So next up, UU to OU, we have Mew and Scizor. So Mew, I believe Mew rose up because I think people mostly are using it to set up hazards on hyper offense and such. Which Mew's always been pretty good at that, seeing as how it it gets access to every move, so it could set up pretty much all the hazards except sticky web. It's also decently bulky. It's not like a frail mon, I don't know, like Smeargle or something people used to use. So it has. It's not just gonna die in 2 hits. It has some longevity, so it has a chance to set up its hazards, and also it doesn't have to necessarily be a suicide lead, because it can, like I said, decently bulky. It can also heal up with Roost or Recover or whatever it wants to run, and also has some nice utility to it as well. It can run stuff like Knock Off, Taunt, Will-O-Wisp, whatever. And also, like I said, I think hazard setup is the main set they're running nowadays. But also, just you can do anything basically. It's just really versatile. So it could. Most people probably running it for hazards, but also probably see some offensive ones running around as well. And yeah, just you can do a lot. It's where is it on usage? It's where is Mew? Number 28. So that's pretty decent. It's not being used a ton, but it's still pretty firmly in the tier. I mean, it's just kind of one of those like weird mons where like it's really, how good it is really dependent on the meta and like what else is being used. Because like sometimes it can be really good because it can like, it's good against a lot of stuff, but sometimes not so much. But you know, it seems like, you know, now is one of those times where Muse just really can show its potential and really do something in the tier. So that's pretty nice. And then Scizor moving up to OU as well. Scizor just, you know, makes for a nice pivot mon. You know, good typing. You know, being steel, can resist a lot. Pretty decently bulky. And also, you know, has access to nice utility like U-turn and knockoff and such. So it's pretty good in tier. I'd say third two. It's actually a pretty big deal for UU actually, because Scizor was like the most used mon in the tier before it moved up. Something like I think it was like 30% usage. You can just check. Okay, yeah, 30%. Is #1 mon in the tier. So now things gone from UU is a pretty big deal, I'd say. Yeah, interested to see how that's going to affect the tier going forward now that like #1 mon's gone. So we'll see what happens. But yeah, we got some new boys moving up to OU. And actually, there's some other mons that being used a lot in OU that haven't qualified for the being OU by usage yet. As you can see here, this says this is the usage stats for June, but they determine like what moves up or down based on like the whole past 3 months worth of usage. So some things have like been used a lot recently, but they haven't been used long enough for to be OU yet. So you can see we got mons in the usage like Buzzwole, Cloyster, Victini, stuff like that. Cloyster actually is people have been kind of spamming that a lot on the ladder recently, if I'm not mistaken. You know, they've just been doing that. You know, there's just Cloyster's shtick of like shell smash, King's Rock, flinching, just pretty cheesy. And people have been actually talking about maybe banning King's Rock because of Cloyster, which I don't know how I feel about that, but I will say that it is annoying to fight sometimes. He does be flinching a lot, which is not fun. But yeah, I see also something that caught my eye was Urshifu moving up quite a bit in usage recently, now making top 10, which makes sense to me because like Urshifu, that's a good ass mod. It's a really strong fighting type, best fighting type in the tier, if you ask me. It's interesting to see because like back when the other Urshifu was around, the dark one, like nobody used this one because the other one was so much better. He was like pretty sure it's top 5 or like even top 3 before they banned him. And it's just like back then no one thought like anything of this one. It's like why would you use him? Like he's just worse. He's just a worse mon in general, and like a lot of people kind of slept on him. But now that the dark one is banned, now this one has a chance to really shine, and like, you know, we've seen over the past few months how good it really is. So it's pretty cool. He's getting his time in the light, which I think he definitely deserves because this mod puts in some major work. Also, something that was wild to me, Excadrill almost fell off to UU, which is wild. I don't know if it's gonna stay that way to next tier shift and he's gonna drop down to UU, because that would be crazy to have this mon down there. I think that shit would be broken 100%. I think he'd get banned. I don't know why people aren't using Drill that much. I mean, like, mons like Corviknight are annoying for him, but like that's big drill. Like, you should not sleep on this guy. Like, he used to be like top 5 usage, like in OU, like earlier in the gen, and now like no one's using it, which is crazy to me. I don't know why. I still think Excadrill's amazing. Like yeah, there's fat stuff, you know, Skarmory, Pex, you know, Ferrothorn, and Zapdos. Like, Excadrill doesn't really appreciate, but like, still, that's big drill. Put some respect on him. I can't believe this. He's fallen so low, lower than like Hawlucha and Swampert. It's like, how? That's the Drillinator, man. Show some respect. That's just dishonest, if you ask me. Drill being that low, unbelievable. Anywho, enough on OU. Back to the other rises. So, from RUBL to UU, we have Galarian Slowbro, Thundurus Eye, and Zygarde Dog. So, Slowbro moving up, kind of an interesting pick. You know, he's got pretty neat typing. Poison Psychic's cool. He's got solid move pool. Regenerator is always nice, although I think Quick Draw is more fun personally. But you know, with Regenerator, he can be a really solid pivot. Can come in on stuff, take hits decently well, and then, you know, heal it all off. Makes for a pretty solid setup sweeper with something like Calm Mind or Nasty Plot, plus a lot of good coverage that it gets access to. So it's cool to see him moving up. Thundurus, so the other Thundurus is already being used a lot in the tier number 6. So now the other one is up in UU2. I think people run this one more mixed most of the time, whereas Therian is pretty much always just all special or setup. And I think Thundurus is interesting pick. I mean, he's always been good, just like a hard-hitting electric type. It's another ground immunity for the tier. And in the mix set with like knockoff is nice because it can hit stuff that might switch in to like a Thunderbolt or something, especially if you can get a Defiant boost, then that's pretty scary. Yeah, I mean, just is Thundurus. He's always been good, like solid typing. So it makes sense. People are using it more. I do still think it's interesting that they're using both Thunduruses, but for different reasons. That's pretty interesting. And also, moving up, Zygarde Dog. This one was a little surprising to me because, like, I don't think Dog's ever been this high up in usage before. Like last gen, I think it was RU. But people have been using them a lot more, and I mean, makes like a good amount of sense. Because if we look at UU, there's not a lot that switches into this guy, honestly. Since he has 1,000 arrows, which, you know, he can hit flying types and whatnot that would otherwise beat him. So, you know, stuff like Moltres or the Rotoms, like, they're not really, or Thundurus, they're not switch-ins to this thing really. Plus he's got stab outrage as well, e-speed for priority. Things that don't really only switch into him in this tier are like fat grasses like Tangrowth or Bulu. But aside from that, there's not a lot that can take a hit from this thing, and also it's also really fast for the tier. Like 115 speed is a really good speed tier. 115 speed lets it outspeed a lot of the faster mons in the tier, like Lycanroc, for instance. Yeah, it's just it's got really solid coverage for the tier. I mean, really only like dual stab, which is ground and dragon, but when you can hit flying types with a ground move, what else do you really need? So yeah, wasn't expecting him to be used so much more recently, but I guess it makes sense when you look at it. Also moving up to UU from RU, we have Rhyperior and Zarude. Rhyperior is not at all surprising to me. Is UU now. There weren't a ton of great defensive ground types in UU before, so it makes sense people started using Rhyperior. Pretty sure he was UU earlier in the generation as well. But you know, there's always been a solid mon. You know, set up rocks. It's got great dual stab. As always, solid rock is fantastic ability. I can even let him take like some quad effective moves like grass or water, as long as they're like on the physical side. He's pretty bulky. Also, just can hit hard. You know, you can put Swords Dance on him if you want. He's just good. He's just a solid ass ground type. Like, so I get why he moved up to UU. And also moving up Zarude. Again, this is like a Scizor type of deal, where like this is a big thing for the tier below RU, because Zarude was used a lot in RU. I think last time the tier shifted, he was #1. I think he had a fair bit more usage than Togekiss, but it dropped down a little. But still, one of the best mons in the tier now gone, moved up. Zarude is this one I was expecting to happen eventually, because you see Zarude like quite a bit on UU. It's a pretty good offensive grass type, which not many in UU besides like Tapu Bulu. It's got really solid stats overall. Good speed tier. You can run him Scarf, just gives you like a nice alternative to something like Crocodile as a Scarfer. You can also set up with Bulk Up. Can be a pretty good pivot with like heavy duty boots, and can give it jungle healing for the longevity. You can heal up a little bit, and also cures status, so that's always nice. Yeah, it's just a really nice mon in the tier. Good pivot or good Scarfer. Yeah, I was expecting this to happen at some point. And again, interesting to see how this will affect RU going forward. Speaking of which, next up from NUBL to RU, Poltegeist. So I'm not entirely sure why Poltegeist is being used more now in the tier, but it's not that surprising. I mean, Poltegeist is, well, it is kind of limited in the sense that it kind of just does one thing, which is Shell Smash and then like Shadow Ball or Stored Power or whatever. It is really, really damn strong if you can get it going. Like Poltegeist is one of those mons, kind of like Volcarona, where it's very matchup dependent. It's like if how well it does kind of depends on what mons your opponent has, because there's a decent number of mons that can wall Poltegeist, but because it doesn't get a lot of coverage. But if your opponent doesn't have any of those mons, then it's going to do a lot of work to them. So yeah, he's moving up to RU. So is Flygon going up from NU to RU. This was another one I was kind of expecting, because Flygon had been kind of getting more popular in RU for a while now. And yet again, big loss for the tier. It used to be in, it used to have 36% in NU, which is a lot. Very, very dominant in the tier. And you can see Bronzong in #2, which I'm suspecting was mainly so it could deal with Flygon, because you know, it can resist Outrage or whatever dragon move, and it's also immune to Earthquake because Levitate. So that's a pretty big deal for NU. Now that that's gone, we'll probably change up the tier quite a bit because like with the amount of usage it had, seemed like it was very commanding in the tier. I know Flygon just kind of doing what it's always done, mainly being a really good Scarfer with just a great typing and ability. Stats can be a little underwhelming, but for a lower tier like RU, they're pretty good, like definitely usable. It's got a lot of access to good moves, Stab, Earthquake, Outrage. It's got fire coverage with like Fire Blast or Fire Punch. It can defog, it can roost if you want it to be like more bulky. It can U-turn out, and it's just always been pretty reliable, honestly. I think before, interestingly, I think when he was in UU, people used to run defensive a lot with like Rocky Helmet, Roost, defog type stuff. So that's pretty interesting. I haven't seen that as much in RU. I think people more so just go for offensive in that tier. But still, Flygon doing what it does. Next up, from ZU to RU, Politoed. I am almost positive that this one was because Barraskewda dropped down to RU last tier shift, and people just been wanting to run Rain in the tier since then, since Barraskewda is there now. So people started using Politoed, which explains the very drastic increase in usage up the tiers. Which, I mean, yeah, it makes sense. Barraskewda is really good mon, and it's even better in the rain, so it makes sense why people would start running Rain more in tier using Toad and whatnot, since Pelipper isn't in RU. I'm not entirely sure how good Rain is in RU exactly, as I know, Politoed is not, I mean, gets the job done. He's got Drizzle, but he's not an amazing like weather setter. And I guess Barraskewda is not too busted in RU with Swift Swim, since he hasn't been banned yet. So I guess Rain's just kind of here to stay in RU, just chilling. So yeah, not much else to say about that. Although we'll have more to say on Rain in a little bit, but before that, from PU to NU. So now we're getting to the part where I'm talking about lower tiers that I don't know a lot about because I don't play them, so I probably won't have a ton to say about these guys. But anywho, PU to NU, we got Guzzlord moving up. Pretty sure his usage was rising up in NU for a while. Not super sure exactly why he's so solid in the tier. I mean, he's got like pretty decent coverage, but like, I mean, it still definitely seems like a lot that could deal with them, like, Sylveon or Diancie, most fairy types really. But to be fair, Guzzlord does have pretty solid coverage. It's got pretty good stats for the tier. Just ridiculous HP, and both offensive stats are pretty good. Decent coverage. I'm pretty sure, I think the two sets they run are mostly like offensive with like a choice band, or defensive kind of toxic stally type of deal, which both seem pretty good at NU. So that explains him rising up. Heliolisk, my boy, moving up to NU. I guess so if we look at NU right quick, let me check something out. So it doesn't really look like NU had a ton of great electric types aside from Rotom-Mow, which is used quite a bit in the tier number 3, but I guess Heliolisk is just there for a nice alternative electric type. I always thought Heliolisk was one of the better types than just this gen specifically, because it has moves like Surf and Grass Knot to let it hit ground types, which in this gen, now that Hidden Power's gone and electric types can't use like HP Ice anymore like they used to, I think that's a really big deal for like how usable an electric type is, which is why you don't see Jolteon that much, because it can't really do anything to ground types. But Heliolisk definitely, I think, can do a thing or two in the tier. Always had like solid speed and special attack. Dry Skin's great for the water immunity. Yeah, I just kind of surprising he was PU to begin with, honestly, because I've always thought Heliolisk was just really solid. It's got good coverage. Yeah, it's nice to see him being used more. Next, Toxicroak. Finally getting some love. This dude dropped down quite a ways. The earlier tier shifts, if you guys remember when like Urshifu came out, and then like it was the best fighting type in the tier, and then like all the other fighting types dropped down, and like it started like a chain reaction, and the tiers like really good fighting types would drop down to a lower tier, and then the fighting types in that tier would like basically be irrelevant, and then those would drop down to the lower tier, and just kept going. Toxicroak kind of got caught up in that and just dropped pretty far down. But now rising up to NU, which is good to see, because I think Toxicroak deserves some respect, because I've always thought he was a really sick mon, and like Heliolisk, he's got the dry skin, water immunity. You can run him physical or special. You can have Swords Dance or Nasty Plot. He's got priority. Good dual stab. The poison type lets you deal with fairies, but you gotta watch out for the psychic types though. But still, you can run like dark coverage for that. Sucker Punch or Dark Pulse, something like that. Yeah, good to see Toxicroak being used more. And Zatu to NU. I'm surprised he wasn't NU already. Could have swore he was, but anyway, not surprising, because Zatu's pretty solid pivot with heavy duty boots. Doesn't take stealth rock damage, makes it better defogger. Can also teleport out, act as a pivot for other stuff to come in. Can also do Future Sight teleport, which is the most fun strat, as we all know. And it's got Magic Bounce as well, which is always just great ability. Yeah, I don't find it surprising that he's moving up to a higher tier. It's like I've seen Zatu used in like OU a little bit, and it's not terrible there, so not that surprising that moved up to NU. Next up, ZU to NU, Garbodor. I'm not sure why he was even ZU to begin with. It's kind of weird, because I've always thought Garbodor was a pretty solid poison type. You can set up T-Spikes. He's got Pain Split for recovery. Aftermath, is pretty nice ability for like a tanky mon, because you always run that risk of when you knock it out, you're gonna take some damage yourself. And yeah, I mean, he's just been like a solid defensive poison type. I think it makes sense for him to be NU, because like he just like can deal with a lot. Like you'd be surprised like what Garbodor can do. Like he's got some stuff going for him. He's big old trash boy, but like he's doing the thing, right? He's out here. In ZU to PU, we have Frostlass. Again, I don't play these lower tiers really, so I don't know what reason exactly they moved up. But Froslass I always thought was super underrated Pokemon. I thought ZU is like pretty disrespectful for this thing, so glad that it moved up a little bit. It's just really good speed tier, very fast, can set up spikes, always been good at that. Taunt, decent offensively with like Shadow Ball and Ice Beam. And it's never been like an amazing mon, but I feel like there's like reason to use it still. Like I think it's pretty decent. Has a lot of tools, and yeah, just good to see it being used more. Sand Slash as well, moving up. Again, I don't know why specifically, but Sand Slash is I think he's a good pick because just pretty decent ground type for the tier. Has pretty good bulk. What's his defense stat exactly? 110 defense, 75 HP, which is not bad at all, especially for PU. And, you know, it can just be a good ground type for the tier. You know, just there to take the electric hits. And you know, he can set up rocks. He's also a good spinner. And you can also even use him offensively if you want. Can put Swords Dance on him. You know, Stab Earthquake plus, you know, Stone Edge for the coverage. Always nice. And I believe Gigalith is in the tier as well, right? Gigalith is BU. Yeah, so if you're feeling it, you could even run him on sand, go for Sand Rush, and have him be an offensive sweeper. So that's pretty neat. So I think Sand Slash is a pretty fun pick, honestly. Cool that he's in PU. And then lastly, for the rises, Silvally. I believe this is Silvally Ghost, I think. Pretty sure. Again, I don't play these lower tiers, so I don't really know what's going on, but I guess people are using him more, I guess, for fighting types in the tier. If you look at usage of PU, Passimian is used quite a bit, so I guess that's part of the reason. I mean, Silvally's always been like pretty good as far as just like in lower tiers anyway. Like it's pretty versatile, gets access to good coverage, good utility like Parting Shot or Defog, and ever since they buffed multi-attack, it's been more viable as well. So yeah, that does it for the rises. And now, ladies and gentlemen, this is where we get to the juicy stuff, the drops down to the lower tiers. So first up, from OU to UU, we have Big Nidoking. Now, this is a little unfortunate to see, but also kind of expected. Nidoking usually finds himself in UU in most gens. It's just a good wall breaker. But it was cool to see him in OU for a while there, because like it wasn't super common before in OU and other gens. But like when Crown Tundra came out, like people really saw like the potential he had and like what he could do. I think people started using him because like he was just pretty good against all the threats in the tier at the time. Just a really good wall breaker. You know, throw a Life Orb on him, and with Sheer Force, you know, you don't have to worry about recoil even. So it's just like a free boost basically. I mean, he's basically like a kind of like a mini Landorus Eye. You know, just like Life Orb, Sheer Force, click Earth Power, and coverage moves. So he was cool in the tier for a while, but it does make sense. He's kind of fallen off a little. Although I do think he's still like pretty dang good in the tier. Like I feel like as far as like a wall breaker goes, he's pretty solid. Like there's not a lot that can switch into it. Like you can deal with Heatran, Toxapex with Earth Power, Sludge Wave for Clef. can have like T-Bolt and Fire Blast or Flamethrower for Core Ferrothorn. Like, I still think he's good, but like, still at the same time, I get why he's moved down and isn't being used as much. And you know, I think I mean, Nidoking's always a good mod. I think he's going to be good in UU. Probably not like ban worthy, I don't think. I mean, Nidoking is usually UU to begin with, so I don't think it's going to be anything that crazy. I think he's going to be fine in the tier. But speaking of things that could be crazy in UU, Pelipper has dropped down. This is kind of a big deal. It does make sense why he fell off of OU, because Rain's kind of always been a pretty niche playstyle. Even though I think it's still very reliable, it is kind of like you are kind of locking yourself in to a certain way to play. Like, it is a very particular, specific playstyle, and Pelipper's always had like pretty low usage in OU, but still enough to qualify for OU, because people still use Rain quite a bit. But now he's fallen off, and this is kinda a big deal, because Pelipper in UU sounds a little bit disgusting. Like, it's Pelipper's always been, like, since he got Drizzle, just like such a good mono setup weather, because like he's got Roost for longevity, so you can, it's not like a hindrance to run Damp Rock like it is on Politoed, because you have another way to heal up besides like leftovers, and you have U-turn, so you can just come in, set up the Rain, and then immediately just U-turn out into you know, whatever like Rain abuser mon you have on your team. Plus, you know, offensively too, it wasn't even that bad, because he got Stab Hurricane, never misses, and Weather Ball it's really strong in the Rain. So having this guy in UU is going to be interesting, to say the least. Definitely going to see quite a bit of Rain spam, I'm sure. I'm not sure if they'll get banned or not. I could potentially see him getting banned, maybe. See how good Rain is. I mean, there are some stuff in the tier to like deal with Rain. Like, we got fat grass types like Amoonguss and Tangrowth, and stuff like Rotom Wash, Tentacruel, even like bulky Primarina or something like that can take some water hits. So maybe it won't be too crazy, but I don't know. We'll see how Rain goes. I think the curious thing to me is, like, if they do decide it's too good, are they going to ban Pelipper, or are they just going to ban Drizzle as a whole from the tier? That'll be interesting. If they do decide to ban one of them, which way they go. I would personally say probably ban Pelipper, because I don't think Drizzle would be the issue necessarily, because like people weren't using Rain that much in UU to begin with. Like, you don't see Politoed up there, so it's not like Rain as a playstyle is like just inherently good in UU. Just like Pelipper's really good at setting up Rain. But who knows? They might just ban Drizzle. Something like that happened in Gen 7, where like I believe it was Sun. Sun was banned from UU, but it was still allowed in RU. Interestingly, they just decided that Sun was too good for UU, but it was still fine in RU, which is interesting. So that may just end up being one of these cases where Drizzle's banned in a higher tier, but not in a lower tier. If that is the case, then I can see Pelipper going the way of Politoed and dropping down pretty far, because, you know, without Drizzle is not very good. But, you know, and in tiers that Drizzle is allowed in, you probably won't get it'll definitely be used, but like probably not enough usage to qualify in the tier. Although interestingly, I do think it's a interesting time that he fell off, because I feel like now like this doing a tournament on the ladder currently, and I kind of brought this up with Cloyster. People have been spamming Cloyster a lot for the tournament, and Rain is also good, like kind of just popular spam option for this type of stuff, because it's, like I said earlier, very reliable, but it's also not that difficult to use. It's, you know, kind of like, you know, no brain Rain, as people like to say. But so I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, if like by next tier usage or tier changes, Pelipper's gotten enough usage to go back to OU just from people spamming it on the ladder. Well, we'll see what happens with that. Anywho, moving on to the next drop, Reggie Alecki from OU to UU. Now, this is one that was kind of people were expecting. Reggie Alecki, his usage in OU was falling off for a while. Not a lot of people were using him as much. He was really in the hype when he came out, because people were like, oh my god, these electric attacks are so busted. Dude, you don't have a ground type, you can hit like everything and they just die. Which, yeah, but if we look at the tier, there's a lot of good ground types. We got Big Lando at number 1, first off. Garchomp, 2. Zeraora down there with Volt Absorb. Doesn't care about Reggie Alecki. Hippowdon, Drill, like, and Swampert too, even. Like, this just like, Reggie Alecki is a like all or nothing mon. Like, if there's no ground types, you're set. You can go crazy. But if you fight a single ground type, it's gonna be rough. And honestly, before he fell, most people weren't even using him offensively. Most people used him for like dual screens, because it's like he's super fast and he can volt switch out. So that's mainly what he did before. But how is he gonna be in UU? I'm not sure, because like it does seem like Reggie Alecki, like I said, like if you don't have a ground type, he's pretty nutty. But there's pretty good amount of ground types in UU that I think it could handle him, like Crocodile, Rhyperior moving up. You got Thundurus with the Volt Absorb, the 2 Nidos as well. So I'm not sure how it's going to play out. I mean, if we look at usage, Crocodile is number 2 in the tier, technically number 1 now that Scissor's in OU. So I think maybe like a similar situation with OU. You have a ground type at the top spot, you know, that's gonna make things tough for Reggie Alecki. And honestly, I can only see him being used more in the tier, since Reggie Alecki's down there, just so you can deal with it. So I don't know. We'll see what ends up happening with him. Not sure if he's gonna be ban worthy or nothing. But yeah, I mean, plus in it, you know, for the offensive strat, people used to run, people like to do rising voltage plus Coco, so you can have Coco set up the terrain, and then just rising voltage gets boosted, power doubled in with the terrain, plus the boost to the electric moves on top of that, so it just did crazy damage. But can't really run that in UU unless you're trying to run Pincurchin, which good luck with that, because Pincurchin is not very good. So I don't see that strat being super common in the tier, but we'll see what happens. Anywho, moving on to drops from UU to RU, is Ninetales. This one is not that surprising, because if you guys didn't know, UU actually banned Light Clay, so because they just decided like dual screens was too crazy. so they banned Light Clay, and that is probably the reason why Ninetales has dropped off, because really its only thing that it does is set up the veil, and now that it can't use Light Clay, that makes it a lot less viable. So it makes sense for him to fall off. How's it going to be in RU? Not sure. I honestly don't think it's going to be like banned. I don't think it's going to be an issue, because the Light Clay ban also affects RU, so I'm not going to be able to run Light Clay Veil in that tier either. You can still run Veil, but like it's not going to be 8 turns long. It's only going to be 5 turns. Is that still going to be too much for RU? Hard to say. I don't really think so, honestly. Although something I do think is interesting is that Ninetales dropping down to lower tiers maybe finally gets a chance for offensive sets to be more viable, because before in higher tiers like OU, UU, like you really had no reason to run offensive, because like just wasn't strong enough, couldn't do a lot, like hard to deal with steel types, and it was just better off setting up a Veil most of the time. But now maybe that's in lower tier, maybe like Nasty Plot, Blizzard, Moonblast, or something like that could be a more viable set. So that'd be cool to see if that does end up happening. But yeah, so that's Ninetales. Next up is Quagsire, doing what he does, which is gets used a lot in a higher tier at some point, because he's really good. People start spamming him, and then they stop using him, and he just drops off to like the lowest tiers. I swear this happens like every time with Quagsire. I've seen it so many times in like different gens where just like, you know, Quagsire's just chilling, and then all of a sudden people just like use him like crazy because he's good unaware wall. People like looking to use him on the stall teams or whatever, and then like the hype just dies down, and then he just shoots right back down to the lower tiers because no one's using him enough. So yeah, it's not very surprising, honestly. This is typical Quagsire behavior. You know, you might see like UU to PU and be like, wow, that's a big drop off, which it is, but it's not very surprising or unprecedented for Quagsire, honestly. So yeah, I mean, people just don't really use him enough to like justify him being in a higher tier most of the time. He's usually just like an unaware wall on stall, which it doesn't, kind of like Rain is a kind of a niche playstyle that isn't super common, because, you know, stall is icky and gross, but even then it's also got competition from stuff like Clefable or Pyukumuku for like an unaware mon, so like he just never gets enough usage really most of the tiers to be tiered that high, even though he is used like a decent amount, because like you do see him in higher tiers occasionally, like mostly on stall, like I said. So he's definitely there, but just not enough to justify being above PU. So yeah, Quagsire just chilling down there like he always does, but he's fine with it. He's a chill boy. He's fine. He's just vibing. Now to NU down to PU. Arctizolt. So I mentioned the Light Clay ban before. Like I said, that also applied to some of the lower tiers, and that made Hail and just Veil in general just a lot less common and viable, since you couldn't run Light Clay anymore. So a lot of mons that you'd see on Veil teams dropped off. And we'll get to a few more examples momentarily, but Arctizolt be one of those mons dropped off. People aren't using him really as much. So he dropped down. But interestingly, they just held a vote. They had a suspect test, and they decided to ban him from PU. So thought it was too much. And I guess that makes sense. He's like, it's got great offensive typing, like ice, electric. Not a lot switches into that. It's got Bolt Beak, which is crazy strong, especially for a tier like PU. While he's not very fast, he can still make for a good wall breaker in the lower tiers. So that's makes sense they ban him. That'd be too much. And also, Galarian Articuno moved down to PU. I'm not sure why exactly. Because again, I don't play lower tiers, but I mean, just Articuno is not. It's not a very good mon in general. Like, just like they tried doing something with him. Like gave him a psychic move that can freeze. That's pretty neat, but like I just think Articuno is not a very good mon in general. Like either form, just doesn't have a lot going for it, unfortunately. So, disappointing, but not surprising to see him in PU. And then, lastly, finally, for the drops, we have from PU to ZU, Arctovish and Alolan Sandslash. Almost said Galarian Sandslash. That's not a thing. So yeah, like I said, with White Clay ban, people aren't using Veil. So these dudes dropped off because that's basically both these dudes. Basically, that was the whole thing. They both have Slush Rush, so there's a whole thing. You just throw them on Veil. They can make for decent sweepers in Hail, which they still can, to be fair. But still, with White Clay ban, people have less reason to run Veil teams. But I honestly think, especially in lower tiers, I think like Hail teams are still decently viable, because like before in older gens, like Hail used to be just garbage, like the worst weather easily. Like why would you even use it? Like there's no point to it. But ever since they introduced Slush Rush as an ability, it gave more incentive to use Hail teams, because you finally had mons that could like abuse the weather, and like because that's the biggest thing with all weather teams. You'll see like the thing that makes them as good as they are almost every time is the mons that have the abilities that doubles their speed in that weather. So stuff like Chlorophyll, Swift Swim, Sand Rush, like all that stuff like is like usually what makes weather's teams so good in the first place. Because like having a mon speed doubled is pretty wild, honestly. Like you get, like speed is very important stat in the game, and getting just like ×2 boost just like free is kind of wild. Plus on Rain and Sun as well, boosting power of water and fire moves is on top of that is pretty clean. So having Slush Rush mons that you can run on Hail is good for like the archetype in general, and I feel like even without Light Clay, I think, you know, like I said, you can still run Aurora Veil. So I think something like even you could run like old Hail, or excuse me, old Aurora Veil setters like you used to, but instead of Light Clay you can put like Icy Rock on them or something, and that'll make it so instead of the screens lasting as long as they usually do, you can have the Hail last longer, which will make it still easier for your Slush Rush mons to sweep. And like a mon like Sandslash, for instance, if you use Sandslash on a Hail team like that, you could like, it'd be better to have Hail last longer than screens, because like you get the screens up for 5 turns, and like, you know, that gives you like plenty of time to set up Sword Stance or whatever. But but then after the screens go away and you still have hail, like having more turns to use your slush rush and be faster, make it easier for him to sweep late game. So I do think like hail as an archetype is still viable in lower tiers. Honestly, I feel like, I don't know if it's gonna be like good, that'd be good enough for like it to be like a staple, like for them people to spam it like they used to spam Veil. But like I still think these like hail mons have a purpose and can be useful, even though Light Clay's banned, because again, like, sure, it's not 8 turns, but you can still set up the screens, and you can still have Pokemon that can abuse hail and the screens as well. So I think there's still potential for mons like these. I don't think they're just completely just trash now that they're now that Light Clay's banned and Veil isn't as good anymore. But that's just what I think. Who knows? Maybe I'm wrong, and hail is just not good enough without 8 turns of Aurora Veil. That is very possible, but I don't know. I'm just spitballing here. But yeah, that does it for the 2 changes this month. Quite a few interesting things. Curious how like lower tiers are going to be affected by the rises. Having a lot of good mons that used to be down lower go up to higher tiers. Gonna be interesting to see how that changes the meta. And also interesting to see if any other mons get banned besides Arctovish from the lower tiers. My guess, if any other mon's gonna get banned soon, probably be Pelipper or just Rain in general. But we'll see about that. Anyways, thank you all for watching, and hopefully you guys enjoyed, and I'll catch you guys later with some more videos. Peace out, everybody.